something strange is happening in Britain. One morning, the British people wake up to an unfamiliar scene: Keir Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party, standing behind a podium, fiercely attacking Nigel Farage, calling him a wolf in Wall Street clothing. But instead of backing down, Farage smiles. And at that very moment, the political earthquake begins. The opposition leader stands stripped of popularity, accusing his rival of deception, while that rival becomes the voice of ordinary people. Starmer talks about the global economy, while Farage talks about migrant boats. Starmer promises stability, while Farage waves the banner of taking Britain back. Between them, a divided country, an angry public, and voters searching for someone who deserves their trust, not just another face flooding the screens with slogans. This is more than a political disagreement. It's a clash of identities, between a man shaped by the corridors of law, and another embedded in the memory of Brexit. But before we start unpacking this conflict, let me ask you a quick question. Did you know that over 95% of viewers on our channel aren't subscribed? We get it, life is busy, there's so much going on, and it's easy to forget. But here's the simple truth: subscribing is completely free, and it really helps us keep creating the content you love. So why not hit that subscribe button now and join our community? Just one click could make a huge difference for us. Thank you for your continued support. Now, back to the story shaking Westminster. Who is Nigel Farage? And why has he returned from the shadows to the centre of the political game? Is Keir Starmer truly leading Labour toward change? Or is he losing the very base that carried the party for decades? In this video, we'll explore the history of both men, the policies that divided Britain instead of uniting it, the growing anger in the streets, and a grounded analysis: who will lead Britain in the next phase? Get ready, because the real story isn't told on the evening news, it's being written right now in the minds and voices of the British people who are tired of talk and demanding action. Two very different journeys on the road to power. In politics, it's not enough to know what a man says, you have to know who he is, and how he got to the podium he's speaking from. That's what makes the clash between Keir Starmer and Nigel Farage more than just a war of words. It's a battle between two completely opposite paths, upbringing, beliefs, ambition, even down to the way they wear a suit. Keir Rodney Starmer was born in 1962 in the small town of Oxted, just south of London. He grew up in a modest home. His father was a toolmaker and his mother a nurse suffering from a rare joint disease. His road to power wasn't paved with privilege, but with silence and perseverance. Starmer worked his way through the education system, earning a spot at the University of Leeds, and later a scholarship to Oxford, where he studied law. It was there that the establishment began to take shape around him. He became a human rights lawyer, and eventually led the Crown Prosecution Service in England and Wales, one of the highest-ranking legal positions in the country. A stern man of the law, quiet, weighing his words like gold. But Starmer was never the fiery orator. He comes across more like a technocrat, speaking in data and principles. When he took over the Labour Party after Jeremy Corbyn's downfall, he promised to bring back rationality and move the party from the far left to a more moderate centre. But the path hasn't been smooth. Critics call him inconsistent. He backed Brexit, then opposed it. He promised unity, then purged the left. Today, some see him as a softer-spoken version of Boris Johnson. On the other side, we have a figure who's hard to ignore, even if you tried: Nigel Farage. Born in 1964 in Kent, southeast England, Farage came from a banking family. He was educated at a private boarding school, but soon after leaving, he entered the world of finance, working in the stock exchange, a place that would later shape his personality: bold, brash, and cunning. He entered politics through the Conservative Party but quickly felt the party was too soft and didn't reflect the will of the people. So he joined a small party called UKIP and became one of the key figures behind its rise. And that's where the real story begins. Farage has always been, and still is, a man of battle. He led the Brexit campaign with every ounce of provocation and populism he could muster. He wasn't a politician in the traditional sense, but rather a voice for the deep frustration on the streets. He smokes, drinks beer on live TV, fires off poisonous jokes without shame, and thrives on provoking the political elite. And the more he's attacked, the more popular he becomes. He's come out of political retirement more than once, and now leads Reform UK with a simple slogan: "Take back control, again." Starmer and Farage represent two completely opposing archetypes. One tries to fix the system from within. The other wants to tear it down and rebuild it from scratch. One speaks in terms of plans. The other shouts in the name of the people. But which of them holds the truth? And which one is truly ready to lead Britain through one of its most turbulent moments? After months of silence, Keir Starmer finally decided to respond. Nigel Farage, who had been dominating screens and stirring emotions with his fiery speeches, could no longer be ignored. He wasn't just a former politician anymore, he had become a real electoral threat, a spectre stealing votes from the very heart of Labour strongholds. In a televised speech before his supporters, Starmer took the microphone and said in a calm but charged voice, "Farage is not what he seems, he's a wolf in Wall Street clothing." The line stunned some, drew a quiet chuckle from the crowd, but it marked the beginning of an open attack, one that Starmer wasn't usually known for waging. Starmer wanted to strike Farage at his strongest point: his popularity as the voice of the people and his anti-elite image. So he used the phrase Wall Street to hint at Farage's banking background and ties to the world of finance, a clear attempt to strip away the man of the people's mask and paint him instead as a symbol of greed and deals. But the problem? The attack came at a time when many Britons feel that the political class, both left and right, no longer represents them. And Farage is the only one unafraid to say what others won't. The press was fiercely divided. The Guardian defended Starmer, calling the speech a dismantling of a false myth. GB News hit back with a sarcastic headline: "Keir Starmer attacks the man Britons trust more than him." The Daily Mail went even further, accusing Starmer of desperation. Meanwhile, clips of public reactions went viral, some saying, "At least Farage speaks the truth." Starmer? He doesn't even know what he believes anymore. In a quick poll conducted by YouGov 48 hours after the speech, the response was harsh for Labour. 61% said they didn't trust Starmer's motives for attacking Farage. 47% felt Starmer had lost his authentic voice. 33% said they were now more inclined to listen to Farage. The attack that was supposed to weaken Farage gave him an even bigger boost. And as expected, Nigel Farage didn't stay silent. In a live stream from inside his car, he mockingly said, "A wolf? Well, at least I'm not a sheep hiding behind the walls of Westminster." He attacked Starmer's elitism, accusing him of living in a world completely disconnected from the people. Then, with a defiant tone, he added, "If Starmer's afraid of my words, what will he do in front of world leaders?" Farage's response wasn't just a defense, it was a clever pivot, using the attack to paint himself as the victim of the system. In politics, success isn't measured by words, but by reaction. And the third round of this clash? It clearly went to Farage. Keir Starmer launched an attack aimed at breaking Farage. But Farage made him look like a man afraid of a genuine rise in popular support. In politics, some issues are fleeting, and some are eternal. Immigration is one of Britain's eternal issues. Every time the government thinks it has gotten it under control, new boats arrive in Dover, the headlines scream again, and Nigel Farage resurfaces, carrying one familiar slogan: "Stop the boats. Take back control." But this time, Farage's appearance wasn't just a tweet. It was a carefully calculated political strike. The GB News cameras were ready. And there stood Farage on the shores of Dover, pointing toward the horizon, where small boats could be seen approaching, as he addressed viewers directly. "This isn't just illegal immigration, this is a soft invasion of Britain." The words were charged, laced with anger, and carried a tone he knew would resonate with millions feeling fear, frustration, or both. But he didn't stop at rhetoric. He began asking the hard questions. Why aren't the boats turned back immediately? Why are migrants being housed in 4-star hotels? Why do successive governments keep failing to deal with the situation? And then came the surprise. The next blow didn't come from London, it came from Tirana. In a rare televised interview, Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama made a statement that shook the British political scene. If Nigel Farage is right, we're ready to take back every Albanian criminal currently in the UK. At first glance, the comment seemed like a nationalistic defence. But Farage seized the moment masterfully, responding immediately. Thank you, Mr. Rama, for confirming it. Now, the ball is in the British government's court. What are you waiting for? In less than 24 hours, the remark turned into a full-blown political and media trend. GB News called it a slap in the face for Starmer and Sunak. The Daily Express headlined, Albania agrees to deportation, and Downing Street stays silent. Suddenly, Farage began to look as if he was the one pulling the strings of British diplomacy from the outside. Keir Starmer, who had been trying to keep the focus on a long-term economic plan, suddenly found himself cornered. The Labour Party remained silent at first, and then one of its spokeswomen issued a lukewarm statement. The issue is more complex than simple deportation. But the public wasn't in the mood for nuance. Comments on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook were scathing. Farage is solving the problem while the government makes excuses. Even Albania is responding, where's Starmer? Enough slogans. We want action. A recent poll by Redfield and Wilton revealed the following. 56% of Britons believe that Nigel Farage is the clearest voice on immigration. Only 19% think Keir Starmer has an effective plan. But the most telling number? 45% said they might reconsider voting for Labour if the party continues to be softer on the issue. During one of his street rallies, Farage stood before a small but passionate crowd and declared, "I won't promise you the impossible. I'll just give you back something simple, your country." His voice was loud, his words direct, and the crowd applauded with enthusiasm. Meanwhile, on the other side, the silence inside Labour Party offices grew heavier. Nothing reveals the contours of a political battle quite like the media. It doesn't just report what happens, it reshapes it, reframes it, and either amplifies or downplays it depending on agendas, politics, and interests. As the showdown between Keir Starmer and Nigel Farage intensified, the British media landscape split into two major camps. One camp warns of the rise of the dangerous populism. The other celebrates the return of the voice of the angry street. From the very beginning, The Guardian treated Farage's resurgence as a genuine threat to liberal politics in Britain. One of the headline pieces read, "Farage isn't an alternative, he's an extreme throwback." Editorials drew direct parallels between Farage's rhetoric and that of Donald Trump, describing his focus on immigration as a fuel of hatred that risks igniting social unrest. They also criticized Starmer's response, not for attacking Farage, but for failing to offer a clear alternative vision, which allowed Farage more room to spread his message. In contrast, GB News treated Farage as a leader returning from forced exile. Their talk shows hosted him repeatedly, not as a commentator, but as a field commander with a vision. A standout headline following Starmer's attack: Nigel Farage, the wolf who isn't afraid of the herd. Presenters didn't hide their support, describing him as the only person speaking with the voice of the ordinary Brit, not the voice of bureaucracy. The Times attempted to strike a more balanced tone. It didn't openly endorse Farage, but acknowledged his undeniable influence. One investigative piece carried the headline, "A voice outside Parliament, but driving the Westminster agenda." The report showed how Farage's mere presence in the political arena was enough to push both Labour and the Conservatives to adjust their rhetoric on issues like immigration and taxation. Meanwhile, populist right-wing papers like the Daily Mail and the Express portrayed the confrontation as nothing short of a national awakening. Headlines included, "Stop Starmer," "Save Britain," "Farage speaks, and Britain listens." They went beyond politics, linking Farage to British identity itself, as if he were an unspoken heir to Churchill. As for the BBC, it maintained its usual neutrality, but it didn't deny the widening gap between the public and the political elite. On Newsnight, one analyst remarked, if Labour can't speak to the British people's emotions on immigration and sovereignty. Farage will fill that void without asking permission. Beyond newspapers and TV screens, alternative media, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, was buzzing with clips of Farage and public reactions. One video of him saying, "I promise you'll get your country back," surpassed 5 million views in just 48 hours. In contrast, Starmer's latest video on his prosperous future plan barely reached 300,000 views. The contrast was striking. Starmer explains, Farage inspires. One speaks from a podium, the other from the street. This battle is no longer confined to Parliament, it's moved into newspapers, screens, and the phones of everyday people. And the man without a seat in the House of Commons now appears to dominate the agenda of everyone who does. In the next segment, we'll dig deeper into who actually has a viable plan. Does Farage offer a real programme, or just powerful headlines? And can Keir Starmer finally prove he's the right man to lead Britain in the aftermath of breakdown? In politics, talk is easy. But the one who survives is the one with a clear, actionable plan. Nigel Farage knows that, and Keir Starmer knows it even better. Which is why, at the heart of this fierce political showdown, a crucial question is being asked by Britons every single day. Which of them has a real plan? Not words, not slogans, a plan that can actually move the country forward. Since taking over the Labour Party, Keir Starmer has published over 20 policy and strategy documents, covering everything from the economy to education, energy to national security. One of the most prominent documents is titled The National Renewal, a 5-mission plan to rebuild Britain. These missions include achieving sustainable economic growth through investment in green industries, reforming the NHS and ending waiting lists, advancing technical education and future job skills, improving security and tackling crime, making Britain a clean energy superpower by 2030. The plan is technically comprehensive, but politically cold. As multiple polls have shown, the average voter doesn't feel emotionally connected to it. Even Labour-leaning outlets like The Mirror criticised the complex language and vague implementation. It's an ambitious plan, but its major flaw? No one feels like it directly speaks to them. Farage, on the other hand, hasn't released a detailed economic programme yet. But he knows how to distill his ambition into a 5-word message. Take back your country. Stop the boats. His focus is on fully exiting the jurisdiction of the European Court, completely halting illegal immigration, cutting taxes for working families, dismantling the deep state bureaucracy, returning sovereignty to every county and city. But critics, of which there are many, say he has a voice, not a plan. Where are the execution details? What's the budget? What's his stance on the NHS? On climate change? On the tax system? All remain unclear. One senior journalist at Sky News even wrote, Farage is like a firefighter with a hose but no water. He shouts cleverly, but doesn't save a single house. Here lies the paradox. Keir Starmer has realistic plans, but he struggles to connect them to the public. Nigel Farage has passionate rhetoric, but offers no concrete, detailed blueprint. In a recent Ipsos UK poll, 42% said they found Starmer's plans realistic but boring. 37% said Farage delivers the message, but offers no real alternative. And 21% said they didn't trust either of them. It seems this battle isn't just between the one holding the paperwork and the one holding the microphone. It's a fight over who can truly make the public feel understood. In the House of Commons, the politicians speak. In the media, the commentators shout. But in the streets, cafes, and homes, it's the real people who talk. And here, where official statements end and the heat of public sentiment begins, the picture becomes clearer and far less polished. Keir Starmer? A man with no clear identity, as one construction worker in Manchester put it. Nigel Farage? His tongue is sharp, but at least we understand him, said a former NHS worker in Birmingham. At the start of 2025, the path to Downing Street seemed wide open for the Labour Party. Polls gave Keir Starmer a comfortable lead, and the corridors of the party were filled with cautious optimism. But politics isn't written in ink alone, it shifts with noise, surprises, and the reappearance of figures who refuse to fade. With Nigel Farage's return to the spotlight, and Starmer's public clash with him, the numbers began to shift in a very different direction. A new YouGov poll from June 2025 revealed some striking contrasts. When asked, who better understands the problems of ordinary people? 46% chose Farage, compared to just 31% for Starmer. On the economy, Starmer held a narrow lead. 38% trust him to manage it, versus 29% for Farage. But on a simple, and rather unsettling, question, who tells the truth as it is? Farage scored 55%, while Starmer lagged far behind at 22%. And when asked the reverse, who lacks a clear stance? The verdict hit Starmer hard. 62% said Starmer, while only 18% said the same about Farage. But the biggest shock? It came from Labour's own base. 29% of former Labour voters said they might vote for Farage, not out of support, but as a warning. A protest vote rather than true alignment. As if they were telling Starmer, we're with you, but we're tired of silence, vagueness, and cold language. In politics, as in life, the greatest danger doesn't always come from outside. Sometimes, it rises from within your own ranks. In a video report by Channel 4 News, citizens from various backgrounds were asked to share their views on the political showdown. A retired man from Newcastle said, "I voted Labour my whole life, but now? I feel like they've forgotten us. At least Farage shouts for us." A teacher from Liverpool shared, "I'm not against immigrants, but I've got a student who comes to class hungry because his mum lost her support. And Labour is defending hotel budgets, not schools." A young man from Luton added, "Starmer represents the elite. Farage represents those stuck in traffic and the ones who pay taxes but see no return." What's happening isn't just a shift toward Farage, it's a quiet rebellion against the political elite as a whole. People aren't searching for the right or the left anymore. They're searching for someone who speaks honestly, who they feel gets angry for them, not at them. Social media reflects this shift with striking clarity. The hashtag #Starmer doesn't get it trended heavily on Twitter. Satirical clips mocking Labour speeches racked up millions of views. And TikTok creators have started posting miniskits titled Farage in the voice of the people, both humorous and emotionally resonant. The question is no longer, who is the better leader? It's now, who doesn't resemble the politicians who've let us down all these years? And here, Farage is playing on his opponent's turf, with remarkable cunning. Every vague statement from Starmer becomes a direct win for Farage. Every dull, technical plan is another opportunity for the Wolf of Wall Street to look like the voice of the street. A few years ago, even asking the question seemed like a joke. How could a man who's never entered Parliament, never led a ruling party, never held executive office, end up in 10 Downing Street? But now, it's 2025. And what once felt like satire is being seriously discussed in the halls of media, on the streets, and in the corridors of power. The question now echoing louder than ever. Could Nigel Farage really become Prime Minister of Britain? And if he does, what would actually happen next? On paper, the obstacles are many. Farage doesn't even hold a seat in Parliament yet. Reform UK remains outside the official parliamentary game. The British electoral system does not favour smaller parties. But on the ground? All of these rules are starting to feel fragile. Public distrust in major parties is at its highest level in 30 years. Farage's grip on public opinion rivals that of official political leaders. The rise of new media has reshaped the balance of power. And the resignation, or weakness, of traditional leaders like Starmer and Sunak has created a massive political vacuum. In the case of an angry Popular Alliance, an election upset, and swinging marginal seats. Yes, Farage could lead the government, or at the very least, hold the balance of power. Based on his speeches, Reform UK statements, and his media manoeuvres, here's a scenario of Farage's first days in power. 1. Declaration of full independence. Final withdrawal from the jurisdiction of the European Court of Human Rights. Strict new immigration controls. Fast-tracking deportations, especially targeting migrants from Albania, Afghanistan, and Iraq. 2. Middle-class tax cuts. New tax policies to incentivize productivity. Freezing planned corporate tax hikes. Scrapping inheritance tax increases. 3. Clash with the bureaucratic establishment. Restructuring the BBC. Freezing funding for environmental sustainability programs. Direct attacks on what he calls leftist progressive culture within public institutions. 4. Symbolic populist policies. Ending hotel accommodation for asylum seekers. Moving government conferences to struggling industrial towns. Launching media campaigns like Bring Back the People's Voice. But not all predictions are rosy. Economists are warning of serious consequences. A collapse in investor confidence if the UK withdraws from international courts. Diplomatic tensions with Europe and the United States. Widespread protests from unions, students, and minority groups. Growing domestic concern that nationalist rhetoric could tip into exclusionary politics. Even the Financial Times wrote, a Farage premiership would trigger a political explosion with unpredictable aftershocks. If this scenario were to unfold, experts anticipate mass resignations from senior civil servants. A potential constitutional standoff with the House of Lords. Possible gridlock in passing new legislation. Coordinated efforts within the military and intelligence sectors to contain a one-man vision. And yet, all of this might only strengthen Farage's image as the leader defying the system. So the real question is no longer, will Farage win? But rather, is Britain truly ready for the kind of leadership he represents? Because Nigel Farage isn't just a potential candidate. He's the embodiment of a deep fracture within the British national soul. Between those who long for a return to the old Britain, and those who see the new world as an opportunity, not a threat. If Nigel Farage does become Prime Minister, Britain will never be the same again. This wasn't just a political clash between two party leaders. It was a confrontation between two completely different visions of what Britain means in the 21st century. Keir Starmer, the former prosecutor, man of detailed files and incremental plans. Nigel Farage, the perpetual protest leader, speaking the language of public anger. Both move in different worlds and speak to different audiences. The result? A country divided against itself, at the heart of a defining moment in its history. 1. People don't just vote with reason, but with emotion. Well-crafted plans are not enough unless people feel they were written for them. 2. Anger doesn't disappear, it seeks a voice. And Farage gave it exactly what it lacked, a platform, a language, a face. 3. Trust in the political elite is on the line. Starmer, despite leading in the polls, hasn't escaped the growing perception that he is part of the system, not of the people. 4. Traditional political identities are collapsing. Labour and the Conservatives no longer clearly represent social classes or historical loyalties. Politics today is about one thing. Who listens to me? Who gets angry for me? Who tells the truth? Will public trust slowly return to the major parties if they offer bolder ideas and fresher faces? Are we witnessing the rise of a new three-party system, Labour, Conservatives, Reform? Will Nigel Farage transform from a media phenomenon into a true political force? Every scenario is on the table. But one thing is certain. British politics has changed, and it's never going back. The British public has broken its silence. And what's coming won't be shaped by Parliament alone. It will be shaped in cafes, factories, schools, streets, and across every corner of social media. In this battle between Starmer and Farage, between caution and defiance, between documents and declarations, Britain reveals the face of a transitional era. A moment that demands a decision from parties, from people, from the media. Is this a passing crisis? Or the birth of a new political era, where there's no room left for the timid or unclear? Do you believe in Starmer's plan? Or are you moved by Farage's tone? Who do you think truly understands the soul of this country? Tell us in the comments and share your predictions for Britain's future. And if you've stayed with us this far, then you're part of this intellectual battle. So don't forget to support the channel by subscribing and hitting the bell, so you never miss what comes next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode of This Nation That Never Stops Changing.